Hey, welcome back to another episode of Operation Evil. This is Nyoka.
This is Rachel.
And this is part 2 of the Robert Palmer case. And with this episode as well, and we'll put a trigger warning because we will have a interview with a police officer who was the first responder. And I just want to throw that trigger warning out there in case anyone needs it. So first I want to introduce you to Bobby Palmer. Oh, and actually, before we do that, if you have not listened to part 1, please stop this episode right here and go back to the previous episode. It's important that you listen to that one first. That's going to describe the whole situation and story, and then come back to this one, please and thank you. All right, so let me introduce you to Bobby Palmer. He was known around Elsmere and Erlanger as a leader of the Erlanger Lions Club. He was elected president of the 150-member organization in July of 1990. He worked with senior citizens. He worked with children, any person in need. That's what drew him to the Lions Club, said Erlanger Councilman Frank Rose, a club member and a close friend of Palmer's. Palmer had been a member of the club for about 7 years. He served on the committees that planned the club's carnival. He would also go out of his way to obtain eyeglasses for children in need. He was the department's public relations man, Green said. He spent time fingerprinting children in a program designed to help prevent crime and identify missing children. City clerk at the time, Nancy Bowman, described Palmer as compassionate, always knew what to say, humble, and funny in his own way. He had a way of making you laugh when you didn't really want to. Elsmere Police Chief William Hyler described Palmer as a good officer who remains cool under pressure. He also stated that Bobby saw good in everyone and never had any complaints from the public about him. He was also described as having a soft spot for children and considered his own kids the light of his life. That's just a little background on him. And I will say there was also when he passed away, everybody came together to his funeral. I mean, it was hundreds of police officers from all around, different badges supporting each other, supporting the blue. And Hyler, the chief, said that he received requests from as far away as New York for details of the story that about his family, and that he was a hero, and everybody wanted to know about him. So his story is still continuing on, and we're putting this out there to show you how far things have come since 1990 and how things are done now.
Neighbors describe Miss Palmer as a sweet, quiet person. Miss Klein, the manager of the trailer park where they lived, said that Sergeant Palmer is revered in the area. I guess, well known, the respect factor.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Klein said she knew Palmer as a police officer before he and his wife moved back into the trailer home about 6 months ago. He is one of the nicest human beings in this whole wide world, Miss Klein said. Sergeant Palmer has been on the Elsmere force for 8 years. He had worked third shift Sunday from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Monday morning. He went beyond being a police officer. He is the kind of person that if he could help you in any way, he would, and I speak from personal experience. She said Miss Palmer had lived in the trailer with her then husband, John Bundy, about 7 years ago, and then Miss Palmer and Bundy have 2 grown sons. So, warning again, there's going to be some a little bit of more detail about what actually happened involving small children. So, neighbor, I'm just going to call her Debbie. I'm going to leave the last name out.
Okay.
Said she saw Bundy get out of his car, which was a maroon color Dodge Charger, and walk into the Palmer's trailer, passing the little boy, Casey, who was playing on the front porch. A short time later, she heard Casey. He began to scream. And she says, then the little boy was running for the screen door. And then I saw him fall. The glass broke and then he fell. Now, her husband, Bert, was working on a ladder on the other side of their trailer. And he said, I heard a gunshot and I ran around here and I saw this little boy fall against that door. He hit the floor, so I ran over to him. When I picked him up, his nose was bleeding, so I laid him back down. I told my wife, call the police and ambulance. He's bleeding. While I was standing over the top of his body, I heard a couple of gunshots inside, and I was thinking automatically, that was it. I figured everybody was already shot. So Bert runs back to his yard to drop some tools, and a neighbor yelled at him to stay away from the trailer, but Bert just ignored the advice. He said, while I'm running back over there, I heard a couple more shots. So I shoved my hand up underneath my shirt to make it look like he had a weapon, and he opened the door up to the house and he went inside. Miss Palmer ran up to him and she asked him how her little boy was, and he told her, I think he's dead. Then Miss Palmer ran to the hallway where her daughter was lying, covered in blood, but she was still alive. Bert said her mom was more or less huddling her body, trying to protect her. She asked me to check on her husband, who was in the bedroom. So he jumped over Bundy's body. He could see him on the floor in the hall to get to Palmer, who was on his knees and lying across the edge of a bed, a 9mm automatic pistol still in his hand. There was also a .38 caliber revolver next to Bundy. Palmer said to Bert, I've been shot, and Bert said, okay, hold on. Bert tells him the police and the ambulance are on their way. Hang in there.
What a brave neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And that was smart that he put his hand up his shirt to make it look like he had a weapon. I wouldn't have had that thought.
Me neither. It was like he was ready to fight.
Yeah. And against all advice, he went in there.
Yeah.
Oh, those poor babies. So, now I'm going to insert the interview with my father, Benny Johnson, first responder on the scene, and get his perspective of what he came across. All right, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Okay. My name is Benny, Benny Johnson.
And do you want to tell people how, what you did for a living to relate to the story that we're telling today?
I am a retired police officer. I have approximately 35 years experience. The topic that we're talking about today happened in 1990, and I was a patrol officer with the city of Elsmere at the time.
Which is in Kentucky. And
Correct.
Also that he is my father who is speaking right now. So we're covering the Robert Palmer case. And before we talk about what tragic thing happened, do you want to say what kind of person he was or how long you knew him or anything like that?
Well, I knew Bob prior to actually taking the job with the city of Elsmere. Prior to working with the city of Elsmere, I worked for the city of Park Hills, also in Kentucky. Bob and I went to training together. He was telling me about a position that had opened up with the city of Elsmere, and he encouraged me to apply, which I did. And I ended up getting the position, accepting it, and went to work for the city of Elsmere.
Yes, I actually have very fond memories of you working at that city.
I enjoyed working for the city of Elsmere. I enjoyed the people. I enjoyed the people that were the city fathers, the council, civil service board. I have fond memories of Jerry Wayner, Timmy Green, and some of the other guys I worked with there. It was a positive experience for me. It's just that I left there after 3 years to pursue better opportunities for me at another police agency.
Okay. So I remember something being wrong that day that you got called on to the scene. But I didn't know what was going on because I was young, but I knew you were upset. So you said it was 1990.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was September the 3rd, 1990. I was working patrol day shift at approximately 11:37 a.m. I received a call from Kenton County Dispatch to respond to, I'd rather not give the address out, to uh, Bob Palmer's address there in Elsmere. I responded very quickly, got there. On arrival, I was to say that I was shocked is an understatement. Noticed a strange car that was loaded up. It looked as though they were ready to move or go somewhere. And I made my way to the front porch or deck of the residence. And there I found Casey Palmer, who was 3 years old at the time. He had been shot in the side and he was dead.
Oh my gosh.
I took and was, of course, was being very attentive. I heard screaming from inside the home, and I took and pulled my weapon, went down low, and I went inside the residence and tried to make my way to where the screams and the crying were. At that point, I went to the beginning of the hallway. There, I noticed Barb, Bob's wife, cradling their daughter, who was 2 years old, Robin. Um, Robin had been shot. At that point, I didn't know exactly the location except for in the back, but later found out she'd been shot in the leg as well. Barb was literally cradling her as though she were protecting her
Oh my gosh.
with her body. I looked further down the hallway. Bob was in the doorway of the bedroom. He had a weapon in his hand, and of course I told Bob to put down the gun, in which he complied. And there in front of Bob was a unknown subject that was laying on the floor on his back. As I approached Bob, I noticed that this individual had taken and been shot multiple times in the chest, the arm, the throat. There was a 38 snub nose that was beside him. It was apparent that this individual was dead. I had not seen him before. And of course, when I seen him, it reminded me of something out of a horror movie because half of his face was gone. He had apparently tried to, from what I found out later, tried to commit suicide years before and had failed in that attempt and ended up causing his face a great deal of damage.
Wow. Okay, so that was definitely a previous injury.
Right.
So you were the first one on the scene.
That is correct.
And as you see the strange man on the floor,
Is Bob like aware of what's going on?
Yes, Bob's there. Of course, he had, like I said previously, had his weapon in his hand. When I got there, you got to realize Bob was a big guy. Bob was every bit of well over 6 foot. I don't know his approximate size, but he was well over 6 foot, and he was a big man. I noticed that he had been shot in the chest. He was gurgling blood, and it sounded to me like at the time was like pressure or what he was trying to talk to me. I had him lay down on the bed, pulled the sheet out from the bed, and I was applying pressure to his chest. I then got on the radio and contacted dispatch I needed multiple squads, as well as a backup, in which I did. I got Tom Lose Sr., who was a sergeant with Erlanger Police Department, responded, and he was my backup. They've got air care in the air. And they arrived on the scene and started treating Bob and Robin. Robin died later on the floor there. Like I said, she was 2 years old. Found out she'd been shot in the leg and in the back. And Bob had shot him. I'm not sure it's been a long time. 1990 was a while back. And Bob, I think, shot him 15 times.
Oh, wow.
He had a Glock 17, which was a 9mm, and it held a great deal of rounds. And Bob was a good shot, and so I mean, he took and he eliminated the threat. But like I said, it was to sit there and see the Bob who'd been shot. He'd been air carried out to UC hospital. Robin, of course, had passed away, and Casey had passed away. It was very traumatic. I later found out that that Barb, of course, was her ex-husband. He had been in a mental institution in Chillicothe, Ohio, a VA facility. He had been released. He had taken and apparently purchased a weapon and brought it back to Elsmere. And I don't know what his intentions were. I don't think anybody did. Whether he was going to take Barb or whatever and eliminate everybody else. But as soon as she seen him pull up, she was out hanging clothes on the clothesline outside. And of course, back then, a lot of people still like to take and hang their clothes outside. And she was one of those individuals. And when she seen him pull up, she ran into the house. Bob had been working night shift, and he was in bed, and apparently jumped over him and tried to get his weapon out of his holster, but it was a security holster, and so it was difficult for her to do that. He ended up, she's apparently she had said that he was there, whatever, and I think Bob come to the realization that somebody was it was her ex-husband that was there, and apparently prior to her getting to that back bedroom, Casey had taken and tried to follow his mother into the house, and when he reached up, you got to remember he's 3 years old, so he was relatively small, and when he reached up to grab the handle to open the door, he was shot by the perpetrator in the side, and he had expired on that front porch. Apparently, when he went inside the residence, Robin was there. From my understanding, granted, I did not do that investigation. It was conducted by a different agency. Apparently, she had been shot in the leg. She dropped, and he came up on top of her and shot her in the back. And And apparently, when Bob got up and had his weapon in his hand, they confronted each other. They were probably no more than 3-4 feet from each other. From my understanding, Bundy had shot him in the knee or the leg, and he went down, and then shot him again, and the projectile went into his chest and into his lungs. Bob got back up and fired multiple rounds, killing the perpetrator.
He really was like a hero stopping that guy.
Well,
That was the last thing he did. Stop him.
That was pretty much the last thing he did. Bob survived for 2 weeks after that, from my understanding. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was around 2 weeks or so after that, and after he found out that his children had passed away. I think it took the life right out of him, and he passed away not long after that. He'd been transferred to Hershey, Pennsylvania, a hospital there, university there, and they were trying new techniques to take and try to help him get better. And of course, that didn't pan out, and he passed away. So we lost Bob, Casey, and Robin that day, literally that day.
I can't even imagine what Barbara was going through at this point. Was she close with the police department since?
Oh yes, Barb knew everybody, and we all knew Barb. She was a good person. She's quiet, good mom. Bob used to call those kids his miracle babies, and Barb was just good people. Like I said, I miss her. She's passed away now, and I miss her and her family. They were really good people. Her mom, her sisters, and brothers. They were just good folks.
So taken back to the scene when you respond. So
Yes.
you were by yourself responding at that moment, right?
Yes.
So one, that has to be scary, seeing what you saw, especially with people you know, and you don't know if the intruder is in there and armed or what to even expect. What's going through your head at that moment? Is it just like an adrenaline rush? And you're not really, are you just focused on the task? Like how, I don't know. How does that work?
You don't have time to let fear get the better part of you. Fear is a good thing. Fear makes you cautious. Fear makes you alert. To sit there and say that you're not scared and to go into that type of situation, it would be moronic as far as I'm concerned. But you don't let that stop you. You have a task at hand, and you know that somebody's in trouble, and you have to do what you have to do. I never thought much about what I did. I just know I had to do it. Somebody was in trouble, and I had to go in there. I tried to take every precaution that I can to guard myself, because I knew there was weapons involved, because I had a child on the front porch that had been shot and dead. I never thought about it. I just went in and did what I had to do. That's where your training comes into play. Your training from the police academy, your in-service training, everything, you work from muscle memory, and that's what that was. You just do what you have to do. And I never thought about myself at the time, and I just went ahead and went on in and tried to help anybody that I could at that point.
So I assume that you clear the scene first before you check on everyone, right? But the child in the yard, when you first approached, it was obvious that he was already gone.
Yes.
Okay.
And to clear the scene, I didn't worry about clearing the scene. I worried about trying to get to the people that were needed the help. The scene cleared
screaming.
itself. Right. The scene cleared itself.
Yeah. So I guess do you know more about her ex-husband? Like, how long were they apart? Like, I guess Barb and Bob, how long were they married at this point?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, probably a couple years, right? Since they had a 3-year-old and a
And a
2-year-old.
2-year-old, yes.
And from what I read, that the ex-husband that was released was actually deemed to be dangerous. And yet they released him. And they did not notify people at the time.
Go ahead and repeat yourself. You were frozen and
Oh, okay. So the guy that the ex-husband was deemed to be dangerous, but yet the mental institution still released him. And during that time period, they did not tell people to be on alert when people were released from there. Is that right?
I'm not sure what happened in that situation. I never had any. Like I said, I didn't do the follow-up investigation. That was done by another entity because of a shooting. A shooting that occurred from our own agency, an officer from our own agency.
Right. Okay. If in my research, I think that I read that they deemed him dangerous, but yet they let him out and all that. So, and she didn't know that he was released. So, now Barbara and the ex-husband had a couple kids together too, right?
That's correct.
But they were not there.
No.
Only Bob and Barb's children were there.
Correct. Her children were grown at that time, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Because I really don't know their ages. I don't really know them.
Yeah. It was just weird how, I don't know, they weren't home. If they were young enough to still live at home, I'm not sure. I don't know. What else do you think? I don't know. People learned a lot from this case after the fact, as far as like, I know with weapons and what guns are being used now. And
well, the chief of police at that time, Bill Hyler, he promoted and I think got legislation passed in Kentucky for the people who have mental challenges to have the ability to purchase weapons. Now, I don't know if it extended into Ohio or whatever the case was, or even if the legislation passed, but I know he was very active in promoting that. The individual, of course, he passed away. There were total 4 people that passed away from that incident.
Yeah. And also, if I remember correctly, I've read so many different things on this case. She even got involved in gun laws and
yes,
other safety measures for other people.
Barb did. Barb was very much an activist. I mean, she wanted to take and make sure that nobody else had to take and go through what she did with the loss of her 2 children and her husband.
Yeah, I can't imagine being her and losing everyone. That's just horrible.
It was a nightmare for everybody that day because Bob was very popular, very well liked in the community, very well liked in the police department. He was a friend of mine. When we had the city picnics and so forth, you and your sister would play with their kids, and I mean, it was a close-knit agency at that time, and everybody took and was literally just heartbroken over this incident.
Yeah, when I asked people around my employment that's familiar with the case and Bob, it did seem to be something that has always stuck with these people, especially in the line of work that you guys are in, because you guys are like a family, brothers and so forth. But
Well,
yeah,
anybody that was involved in that particular case, it affects them still to this day. It affects me still to this day. It made me question whether or not I wanted to be a police officer still. It was very hard for me. I don't mind saying that when I got home that night, my wife, your mother, was very attentive to my feelings and what and how I felt. She made sure that you kids, because you guys were small, you were young. I believe you were 9 years old, had just turned 9 years old, and your sister was 4 years old. And so she had you guys, excuse me, go up to your room and play. And she just left me in the dark in the living room, and I literally just put a towel over my head and I cried. And I don't mind saying that. It did make me question if I had made the right career choice, but luckily at that time, with the administration there at the city and at the police department, kept me busy, and it allowed me to work through these things. It's something that you're never going to forget, and these are the ghosts that I live with, as well as many other incidents that's happened in my career. But what happens is you learn to come to grips with with your demons, so to speak, for lack of a better term. And because your mother always wondered how I even slept at night, but you just come to grips with it, and you accept what reality is, and you try to move forward and try to think that what you did, you accomplished something that was positive.
do you remember Bob ever saying anything about the ex-husband before all of this happened? Like, were there any emergency orders?
Not nothing that I was aware of, but he did tell me to be careful and watch around the house. I think he let everybody know that. He was fearful that he may come to the residence and do something like what he did, and he did. Like I said, it was to me, it was it's something that'll be part of my psyche and part of my life for as long as I live. For me, I mean, even though it happened, let's see here, 31 years ago, it's still fresh in my memory, and it's still heavy on my heart. And I think that everybody that was involved and still around from that time will probably say the same thing. Your godfather, who was a lieutenant there, I know it affected him as well, and as well as the other officers that were part of that agency at the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess that would probably be all of my questions, unless if you have anything to add.
No, I know I can tell you this much, but ever since that happened, September 3rd is always one of those dates that will forever be embedded in my psyche for, and it causes me to recollect and remember those events that occurred that day. I was grateful at the time for the other officers that were there at the scene. Tom Lowe Sr., whose son is a police officer now as well, retired from Fort Mitchell and works for the city of Erlanger. But Tom was a special guy, and it created a unique bond between us, because it's something we never had to speak of, but we knew. The other officers that were there, some of them are no longer with us. Some are still around. It affected everybody. It affected everybody greatly. And I'm sure that they feel the same way I do, that every time September the 3rd comes around, it was it hits them. That was the holiday. That was Labor Day. That during that time, it was a hot summer day. It was terrible. It was tragic. I mean, there's not much I can say that can minimize that. It was very much a tragedy, and it's very sad that two small children lost their lives, and would have been 34 and 33, or yeah. And so, I mean, they never got that chance to experience life, and that saddens me. And Barb, of course, God rest her soul, she passed away, I believe it was around 15 years later from that date, but even though she and it was one of those things, you cannot replace people that you love with cash, and that was. And Barb, even though she tried to do a lot for the community and that kind of thing, I don't think Barb ever got past that. And I think she when she passed away in her sleep, she died with a heavy heart.
Yeah, and I think she passed away on September 4th, obviously many years later, but a day after their death anniversary.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost like 15 years to the day, and that's I think she went to bed and she just didn't wake up.
Yeah, very sad. Thank you for talking about this. I know it's hard, being so close to home and whatnot. Very hard to talk about, but I appreciate it.
I don't like to talk about those things, but I know this is special for you, so I made an exception here.
Yeah, I wanted to give this case the justice it needed and to put it out there, and I want to do a good job with it. So thank you for coming on, especially since you were the first responder. That's something else.
But don't just think of me. I mean, there was a lot of other people there that worked hard to do the investigation. There was Mark Fields, Dwayne Rolfson, Wayne McKenzie. There were Timmy Green. There were a lot of officers that responded to that scene and did outstanding work trying to take and put all the pieces together for that puzzle. And like I said, it was. Everybody did a phenomenal job. It's just, it was tragic for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, sorry Rachel couldn't interview with us, but she will be joining me when we give this podcast on Friday. I guess that's it. Thanks for joining our podcast, Operation Evil.
You're more than welcome.
Glad to have you on.
Thank you, dear.
All right. So I will talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so now that we heard from Benny Johnson, I did want to talk about handguns. And the reason why I want to talk about that is because the Robert Palmer case was a big eye-opening for a lot of agencies in the area. And they really questioned, like, what are we doing here? Now, I do want to put out this morning, I am no gun expert. I interviewed someone who helped me with this, but they are not a gun expert either. So I just want to throw this out there. But this is from like what I gathered and the knowledge that I have on any of this. So we know that Bundy used a .38 caliber revolver, and Sergeant Palmer had a semi-automatic 9mm. At the time, a lot of police were carrying revolvers. FBI was carrying revolvers. The 9mm back then were not the same 9mm that we have today. They just weren't as good. So it really makes you wonder, like, okay, Bundy got 2 shots in, and look at the damage he did. And although Palmer definitely stopped the attack and killed him, he shot him 12 times. Like, that's a lot of times.
Why did it take 12
Yeah,
shots?
why did it take 12 shots? It was just, I don't know, it really makes you, like, look at these things. So The Kentucky State Police, they were the first big agency in the area to switch to a 10 millimeter. The problem with the 10 millimeter, though, is that the ammo was super expensive. I think it still is to this day. Kentucky Erlanger Police Department did some research, and they decided that instead of using the 9 millimeter that Elsmere was using at this time, that Palmer used, they were going to go with a 45 because even though, ammo for 9 millimeter is probably one of the cheapest when it comes to your handguns. But going with the 45, even though the ammo is more expensive, if you think about it, you're using less ammo because it's having more of an impact versus the 9 millimeter ammo. So it's kind of smart research, in my opinion. Now, this is all hearsay, okay? I just want to throw that out there. Again, nobody come after me if I'm wrong about anything. And then from my understanding, Independence Police went to a 40 caliber, which is still good.
And all these little cities that we may mention are all in northern Kentucky.
Yes, they're all local.
Right across the river from Ohio.
Yes. I asked about ammo. There's different ammo out there because when you shoot the bad guy, you don't want to shoot Susie, the good person that's behind the bad guy. You don't want that bullet to penetrate that person and go into the innocent one. We want it to stop with the bad guy. So I'm like, well, what kind of ammo do they use?
That. Yeah.
Yeah. And they use hydroshock ammo. So that kind of gives it spreads out more, keeps it in the body. I wish I had a gun expert on our show right now to talk about this. However, we do not. So you got me. Next best thing. I'm just kidding. But anyways, I just wanted to throw the handgun thing out there because I do think that this case did kind of factor into what kind of guns are going to be carried from thereafter. I will say that, my father was a police officer my whole life.
Well, so you have some knowledge because of him, right?
I mean, I guess secondhand knowledge. But so when he worked for Elsmere, I have the fondest memories. I've always said this to people. I've
heard you say it.
The best memories with the people that worked for that city. I would go in there and the clerks and stuff would load me up with candy and talk to me and ask me how I'm doing. And I would play with the cops' kids. And one of them was is my godfather. I found his daughter on Facebook and we're like, oh my gosh, because it's just been so long and we always played together. So it was really cool. But I do have the best memories when my dad worked for the Elsmere Police Department, for sure. I grew up in a police department.
Well, and we have coworkers that.
Now I grew old in a police department. No, but
a lot of people Elsmere or Erlanger, they think that it's the same place, that the two are in one. And it's not. It's two cities right next to each other.
Yeah. But they do help each other out a whole lot. So
yes.
That's probably why.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't know if I said, but please excuse my chair. Now because the shooting involved Palmer as an Elsmere police officer, they that department couldn't investigate that shooting, that whole thing. So Kenton County Police did the investigation of the incident, and then Erlanger Police Department helped. And I believe and my dad says this in the interview, he was first responder on the scene, and then his backup was actually an Erlanger officer. So,
Okay.
yeah. So that was interesting. So you had these different departments coming together, working together. I guess after listening to the interview, if you guys have any questions that you want to relay or ask, I can do that for you. You can email them to operationevilpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. I created a TikTok, but I haven't posted anything yet on there because we don't have any video.
Oh, and there's also a couple websites that you can go to, which we added them in the notes. But there's like Cincinnati Police Museum, a couple other like they're websites that are dedicated to officers who have passed in the line of duty. And they have Bobby's picture on there, and they have a quick brief story. So maybe check those out too, so that way you can put a face with who we're talking about. But of course, we'll attach pictures as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I hope this, I feel like we had a lot of pressure on us with this story because it affected a lot of people we know.
And I think it's important that we did it because his history, like who he is forever.
Yeah.
It's an Erlanger, not just Elsmere. It's an Erlanger too.
Yeah. It was hard to find people to talk about it that are still around. So I really appreciate everyone that came forward and told us their little stories or memories of the incident or of the people involved. We just really wanted to do a good job on this, and I hope that we did. But we thank you all for listening again. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I will try to get any answers for you. And also, we will be sending out the Tier 2, Tier 3 little goodies really soon. We got it all together. So we will be doing that. So look for that if you haven't received it by the time you hear this.
We didn't forget about you.
No, definitely not. And that's it, guys. So thanks. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends.
Yeah, thanks for staying with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all until next week. Goodbye.
Bye.